Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Triple Play Podcast. This is your host Danielle Whaley, and today I am joined by Jake Nichols and Matt Raymond. And let's just go ahead and dive right into this show because we're going to talk about football first. Football was back for the weekend here on Rocky Top, and it made a lot of people happy, but it also made a lot of people just flat out bored, which is unfortunate. But the orange and white game brought in 67,027 people in attendance this Saturday. It was the third largest crowd in the game's history, and the defense won it, the orange team, 70-63. So this was the first glimpse that people had with Team 120 and what they have to offer for the season. And like I said, many people are saying this practice was rather boring and not all that exciting. But there were players who were making waves for the game that we could see making waves as we go into the season. Who are some of those players that stood out to you guys?
Preston Williams and Jeff George, in my opinion, had the best games of the day. And one thing that I kind of took away from the game is Jeff George is definitely going to be one of those guys that gets targeted in the end zone and the red zone this year because he had I don't remember who he had that one catch over for a touchdown, but he went up and went and got the ball. And it was really good looking.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
He's definitely going to be a big part of the receivers this year. And then Preston Williams, he just kind of kept building on what he did last year towards the end of the season and had a pretty nice game.
I agree with that. Yeah, I would definitely talk about Jeff George a lot, and that's one of my players that I'm going to talk about. I don't know if he was one of yours, Jake, but I mean, this guy had he caught four of 28 yards. Yeah, and a touchdown. So, I mean, for that in a spring game, that's impressive.
Yeah, so, I mean, he had a good showing, coming out. Like Matt, like you said, the first catch in the end zone was a good one, but then on the defensive side of the ball, I think that Cortez Sapp and Corey Vereen had some good plays for the defensive line. Sapp had 8 solo tackles and 1 assisted with 1 for a 4-yard loss, and then Vereen had 2 for loss for a total of 14 yards. So that gives you a little bit of a glimpse of how this defensive line is going to play out. And then I think with the addition of newcomer Kongbo that we're really looking to have a good start for the defensive front. Then I think as far as the secondary, Todd Kelly came in with an interception. It was off a tipped ball, but still very good coordination there to grab that early in the game. And then I think another one that not a lot of people talked about but still had a solid showing for his debut was Markeel Osborne. He had, 6 solo tackles and then 2 assisted, and then 1.5 for loss for a total of 6 yards. So not a bad start for the incoming freshman.
Definitely, and aside from Jeff George, who I already mentioned, John Kelly also looked really, really good on Saturday. He made powerful rushes since Hurd and Kamara were both kind of just laying off for the day. But I think he's somebody we could definitely look at to for Tennessee to put in key situations because he has speed. He really was able to just burst through the line when needed. So that could be really exciting. On the defensive side, Danny O'Brien, not too bad. He had a pretty good showing. I was impressed with what I saw out of him. I think Tennessee could be looking to see a lot of big plays from him. But overall, I mean, I thought it was a good showing. Of course, not everybody's going to play in this game. You're wanting to make sure people are healthy. There are a lot of guys injured right now that they're still waiting to get healthy too. So now we just kind of wait around for summer practices to get going as we wait for the season. But Butch Jones had been hinting at a big announcement to be made at the game, and it ended up being the naming of permanent season captains, which is one of the first things he's ever done. He's never done this before. He's been doing just game-by-game captains. And the 4 that had been voted on by the team were Josh Dobbs, Cam Sutton, Jalen Reeves-Maben, and Alvin Kamara, who out of the 4 is looked at as the big surprise.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that.
Underclassman, not really one that you completely expect coming into the season, but I guess that just shows that the presence he's had in the locker room and on the field that we haven't seen has paid dividends.
So how do you guys look at these 4 as the captains? Do you think this is a good choice?
I think that that the 2 and Cam Sutton and Jalen Reeves-Maben are practically a given, seeing that they are seniors coming back, that they chose to forego the NFL to come back, to rejoin their team, and to start this 2016 campaign. Dobbs, I think, is a pick that most would make, seeing as he has possessed great leadership skills in the past and really carried this team during parts of last season.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at Kamara getting the nod over somebody like Jalen Hurd.
Yeah.
Whatever, just for the fact that Hurd's been here. He's gonna be a junior this year. He's been here all 3 years.
He's a sophomore. So.
Carried the load all 3 years.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely think that speaks to Kamara's leadership abilities in the locker room, that his teammates are putting this much trust in him.
Definitely, and I want to shift focus to going back to what everybody saw from the game. Are there any key points with this team that you think they really need to key in on to fix by the time they get into the season? Anything that worried you in this practice?
Well, I mean, maybe not necessarily from this practice. I didn't exactly see anything that worried me per se, but just building off of last year, finishing games in the fourth quarter. Just keeping your foot down and not letting 2-score leads evaporate. That's one thing I think we're definitely going to need to work on this year if we're going to want to be in the hunt for a national title.
Yeah, I think that's a very big thing. And then also, Quentin Dormady came in and had, I believe he was sacked 6 times. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously you have the first-team offensive line not really allowing much there for Dobbs, but then maybe watching that second-team offensive line a little bit as they protect Dormady, because obviously, as we all know, injuries can happen very quickly in the trenches. And so I think looking at a couple of the second-team offensive linemen going down the depth chart a little bit could be a bit of a concern.
Sure, I looked at the offensive line. I noticed there were still some holes, like you said. I mean, Dormady was sacked quite a few times in this practice, and there's just little matchups that I think they're really going to have to work on. But with Dormady, I was really impressed that he had 5 touchdown passes in this practice, which I think is good. But also, in that same respect, Zach Jancic had a pretty good showing, too, whenever they would just do the quarterback reps. Whenever they were trying to remake the Peyton Manning play against, I think it was South Carolina back in the day. So that was impressive to see. And out of all the quarterbacks that had to hit the target, Dormady and Jancic were the only ones to do so.
Yeah.
So I think that could be exciting. I mean, of course, it's just a small little practice that they did, but that was impressive to see because you would think Dobbs would get it. Dobbs didn't, but then those two did. And I think Dormady and Jancic just looked really good in this practice. So maybe Tennessee will be getting more playing time from them in less serious of games. I hate to use that term, but in not the bigger games.
When you think about it, like, home opener against Appalachian State, if they get up to a big lead in the first half, obviously putting in Dormady in the second half, but then maybe giving Jancic a few more chances than he saw last year.
Sure, I agree with that. I think we'll see that. And you mentioned Appalachian State, so now that all that's left for Tennessee football and for Tennessee fans is to sit back and wait for the season to start, which will be September 3rd right here in Knoxville as the Vols host Appalachian State, and that should be a good game, and that's the week before a battle at Bristol, which is everybody's kind of overlooking the Appalachian State game and just going straight to Bristol as the season opener, but you have to look at Appy State. That's a good team. They're a good team every year, but we'll see how Tennessee does against them on September 3rd. So now we just sit back and wait. We have the draft coming up next week, I want to say, maybe the week after. I know it's the end of April, but we'll end up talking about that next week on the show. But let's go ahead and move over to Tennessee baseball really quick. Tennessee baseball dropped its weekend road series to Auburn, 2-1. It was a tough road loss for the Vols as they were taking on a team that was also struggling in the West Division. Both teams were at the bottom with 3 wins and 9 losses in the SEC this season going into the series. So, like I said, tough road loss for Tennessee, losing 2-1. But was there anything that stood out to you from this series?
I think that starting off the series, that Aaron Soto had great pitching. He led the Vols to a 13-4 win, which obviously scoring 13 runs pays tribute to hot bats as well. But I think Soto pitched well, but then later it kind of dwindled a bit as, obviously Tennessee lost a big lead in, was it the third game? And let Auburn come back. But then in the second, the Tigers just came out and won, I believe it was 2-4.
Right, and I want to go back to Soto as well. Soto, I've talked about him on the show before whenever I've been talking about Zach Warren, as how they are the 2 top sophomore pitchers, and it's crazy to have sophomores leading the way for Tennessee baseball in terms of pitching. But Soto, his stat line for that game on Thursday was really impressive. 6 1/3 innings pitched, allowing 6 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. But his pitching, while it was strong, Tennessee's bats were just as impressive in that game. But they have to really kind of give a lot of that credit to the struggles that Auburn had from Bramer, who was their starting pitcher for the night, who came off of a game before this. His last outing was whenever he came in and was a relief pitcher for the Tigers, and he, I want to say he had 11 strikeouts in 5 innings during that. So Bramer struggling like he did at the beginning, giving Tennessee the chance to have 4 runs in the top of the first alone, that was something for Tennessee to really go against this pitcher, not take any, don't really look at him as like that strong, but really just maintain their strength, keep going against him. I mean, Vincent Jackson was at the plate for what seemed like forever in the top of the first inning. I mean, at a 1-2 count that lasted almost 20 years, I felt like. So I think they could definitely keep moving with their bats that they have right now, because we've been talking about on the show too how they need to find that balance between having strong pitchers but also strong batting, and I think that Saturday matchup, or the Thursday matchup, really showed that Tennessee is capable of that. So I think going into this series this weekend against Vanderbilt, while it is going to be a tough one because Vanderbilt is number 5 in the nation as of right now, they really need to keep that going. Keep the momentum that you can have at the beginning, but keep it the whole way through the game, which Tennessee did in this one. They had runs in the first inning, the 4th inning, and the 8th and the 9th inning. So, I mean, they were finding consistent ways to keep runs coming in to where they could keep a solid lead going on. So I think Tennessee really needs to focus on that as they go into this week. They will be traveling to MTSU on Tuesday before coming back to host Vanderbilt, like I said, this weekend. So we're going to go ahead. Yeah, Senzel, we're going to talk about him really quick, too. Number 1 on the SportsCenter top 10. I think he was number 1. I know he was in the top 10 with his grab. How did you react to that grab?
I honestly, it didn't really affect me at first. I guess like it took a minute to register. Like he actually dove into Auburn's dugout. Like then after it started catching on, after I was like, wow, he actually did that. My first thought, I think, was that had to really hurt. But then, I mean, it really pays to just the talent that this guy has. I mean, you can see why he's predicted to be a first-round draft pick. Just great talent, and then just no fear as he did that for his team, just making a play right there.
Sure.
Yeah, when I first saw it, it was one of those things where I saw it and I was like, wow, that was a pretty good play. But then it didn't really kind of register on just how good it was until I was watching SportsCenter that night, and then they get to the number 1 play on SportsCenter top 10, and it's that play.
Yeah.
And I think that's about when I realized that, like, holy cow, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
But now going back to what you were saying, Jake, and how you thought, like, oh wow, that had to hurt. I think one of the best qualities in good players that you can have is the fact that they'll put their bodies on the line
run
for
into
their
a
team.
wall.
Right. They'll do anything to make a play and get the win. And I think that's what Senzel was doing there. And so that's definitely
definitely shows he has character.
Right.
Plays into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching it live, and I can tell you, I had to walk away from the TV after it happened, because I'm like, there's no way this just happened. Like, I was in disbelief. I came back, and somebody had already tweeted out a video of it. I had to watch it at least 20 times, and then it kind of sunk in. I'm like, okay, I knew Senzel was the real deal going into this, but now I'm just like, okay, Nick, you are insane. Why do you do these things? What a play. What a play. He deserved to be the number 1 play that night, because that was... wow, that's giving your all for Tennessee if that's ever been truer. But let's go ahead and shift over to Tennessee softball really quick. They've been in Athens since Saturday, taking on number 10 Georgia. The Vols have already secured the series win, taking the first 2 games. So based on what you've seen so far in the series, do you think Tennessee will sweep Georgia tonight?
I will say yes. I think so far what I've seen through the series is that Tennessee's offense can shine, but in the circle is where it can really put up big numbers with Rainey Gaffin and Aaron
Gabriel.
Gabriel, that's right. I mean, Megan Gear homered in the second game to left field to score 3 runs for Tennessee, scoring 3 of their 4 on the day. But then, by the same token, Gabriel and Gaffin combined for allowing 5 hits with 1 run and 1 error and 31 batters fanned to shut down Georgia in the second game. So I'm really looking for that pitching to come out and dominate again tonight.
I agree with that. I mean, we've talked about Tennessee pitching, I think, almost all season, especially Matty Moss. she's insane. On Saturday, she pitched 6 1/3 innings, allowing just 3 hits, no runs, 6 strikeouts. This girl's insane, and she's only a freshman. I'm still just baffled by this. There's so much power that she's going to be bringing to this team as the years go on. But definitely in terms of pitching, I think Tennessee has done a really good job of really just containing the Georgia bats. You know, I mean, both the games so far, Georgia's been held to 3 runs total. Tennessee's outscored them 9-3 in both the games so far. And with this being in Athens too, Tennessee's really been struggling on the road, so it's good to see them winning like this. Right now, their away record's 5-7, and they're still undefeated at home. So I think it's good they're getting power against this Georgia team on the road. I think it's really going to play a part whenever they come back to play Furman this week, and then they're going to have the Tennessee Classic before they head into more SEC play as they take on teams like Auburn and Ole Miss, which we previewed last week on the show. That Auburn matchup's going to be it's terrifying to look at. It's not going to be pretty. There's going to be a lot of praying going on with that for Tennessee fans, but we'll see what happens there. But like I said, that game, the game tonight for Tennessee, that's going to be at 7 p.m. on the SEC Network, and that's the game of the week. So that's really impressive for Tennessee to be getting that. But they're going to be taking on Furman this Wednesday. They're going to be hosting Furman. That's going to be at 6 o'clock here in Knoxville, and then Tennessee will be hosting the Tennessee Classic this weekend. They'll be playing teams like Oklahoma, Louisiana Monroe, and Lipscomb. That's going to be Saturday and Sunday, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. But let's go ahead and switch gears to the NBA because there are some major VFLs playing right now as the postseason is going on with the playoffs in full swing. And there are 3 VFLs that I think everybody knows and loves. But so 3 of them are getting action right now. Josh Richardson and the Heat have a 1-0 lead over the Hornets, while Tobias Harris and the Pistons are down 1-0 to Jordan McRae and the Cavs. So people around here really like looking at VFLs in any sport. We talked about it with Peyton numerous times. Have to throw Peyton into the show somehow. We talked about it with other baseball players like Todd Helton, things like that. But with the NBA, whenever there's a VFL playing, that's really special because that's not something Tennessee gets all that often. So we're going to focus on these 3 right now. So out of the 3 teams and these 3 players that Tennessee has in the playoffs right now, which one has the best chance, in your opinion, of going far in the playoffs, if any of them?
Well, obviously, I think the Cavs have the best chance to get far in the playoffs because of who they have on the team with LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love.
Right.
So out of the 3 VFLs, I think Jordan McRae is going to go the furthest. But that being said, Josh Richardson has easily been doing the best out of the 3 this year. Yeah. Just what he's been doing down in Miami is just ridiculous, making the top 10. And I believe, does he still have the highest 3-point percentage since the All-Star break?
I believe
I know for a while after he was right there at number 1. And so it's just, ever since then, what he's been doing down there has just been insane.
I agree with that.
I'm going to go with that. Matt, I agree. But by the same token, you can't count out Tobias Harris and the Pistons. You never really can, considering they have him, but also players like Andre Drummond. I mean, you really can't ever completely overlook them. Harris, I believe, went 4 for 11 from field goal range in Game 1, but at the same time grabbed 10 rebounds, second to only Drummond's 11 in the first game. 6'8", small forward. I mean, that's pretty good. You need to look out for that.
Yeah, looking at the bracket, I mean, I didn't really keep up with the NBA during the regular season. I usually don't. I usually watch during the playoffs, and I think it's kind of crazy how all 3 are on the exact same side of the bracket. So it's kind of tough to really pick one to go far because at some point you could potentially have 2 of them taking on each other. You could have Cleveland taking on Miami and having Jordan McRae take on Josh Richardson, which I think that would be exciting to see if you're a Tennessee fan, see those 2 going against each other. But if I had to take a pick right now, I mean, Miami seems to be, they have a pretty easy way in right now. The only teams below them are Charlotte, Toronto, and the Pacers. But it's tough to pick against Cleveland. It's really tough, like you said, Matt, with everybody they have on their team. You can't really pick against the Cavs. They're really strong. I mean, I think the Cavs could be owning the East in this one pretty dominantly. but they did struggle to contain the Pistons in that first game, with Cleveland only winning 106-101. So, and you mentioned that too, you can't hold down the Pistons, Jake. So, I mean, I hate to say it's like evenly matched right now for these three balls, but I would still, it is, but I would still give the edge to Cleveland just as of right now. I don't see them being stopped in the East, but that's just my opinion. So we'll talk more about that next week. We'll see who's still in it. Most of the games should still be going on at that point, but we'll look into it more. But speaking of Vols in the pros, congratulations to Bashara Graves for getting drafted by the Minnesota Lynx with the 22nd pick in the WNBA draft last week. This makes her the 6th Lady Vol in the Holly Warlick era to be called up during the draft, and that's pretty incredible.
Absolutely.
Did you guys expect any other Tennessee Lady Vols to get drafted, or was Bashara the one you were looking at to get drafted?
I think, I think Bashara was really the only one that I was just thinking, all right, well, she's probably going to get drafted. I didn't keep up with the Lady Vols too closely this season, but what I saw from her was definite WNBA talent.
Yeah, I mean, she produced the way that you would expect a WNBA player to produce. And with a program like Tennessee, even, if you will, on the downward spiral that it is right now, she was definitely someone to look for in a few of those close losses that the Lady Vols experienced.
I think even with the struggles that Tennessee had this season, I expected Graves to get drafted sooner.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that she didn't get picked until the 22nd.
Could that have played a part in it, though, that the struggles Lady Vols had so overall?
I think it definitely did, because you didn't really get to see like her full potential. I think. I mean, just watching how Tennessee played this season, whenever the team was struggling, you could see it in some of their key players. We talked about that a lot on the show during the season. So I feel like if Tennessee could have been stronger, we could have seen her as a top 15, maybe even a top 10 pick. So I was just really surprised by that 22 pick. I was looking at her as getting drafted maybe like 18th, 19th, taking in the problems that the Lady Vols had this season. But nonetheless, this is big for Graves. I think she deserves it. She deserves to be in the pros. She's a wonderful player. She's so strong. She's so dynamic as a player too. Talked about that a lot during the season. So I wish her the best of luck as she goes to Minnesota. I know she'll do great things for the Lynx, but if you're Holly Warlick, you have to be proud to have 6 players called up to the draft on draft night. So that's really proud for a really proud moment for not just Holly, but all of Lady Vols fans everywhere. But that's all we have on the show this week. Thank you for listening. It was a full show with a lot of sports. But join us next week as we start to look at the draft while we get closer to that. Continue to look at Tennessee baseball and softball. And we'll see what else happens. We might talk about the NBA if we still have some big moves happening with the former Vols that are playing there. So thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you next week right here on the Triple Play Podcast.